20 years ago, a 13-year-old girl from Tennessee walked into a Disney Channel audition wearing a t-shirt that said, and I'm not making this up, "I should have my own TV show." She was right. And what followed was one of the most chaotic, beloved, billion-dollar wig-related accidents in the history of children's television. Hannah Montana ran for 4 seasons, produced 98 episodes, became a franchise worth over $1 billion, launched one of the biggest pop careers of the 21st century, and was, plot twist, nearly given to someone else entirely. Oh, and the actor playing the teenage brother? 28 years old, married, with a wife on set, who he was making out with in between takes, all while Disney thought he was 18. It just celebrated its 20th anniversary. It just got a Disney Plus special. And it is absolutely time we talk about everything that was happening behind the blonde wig. This is Fever Dream Nostalgia, and sweet Niblets, here we go. Let's rewind to 2004. Disney Channel is riding high on High School Musical buzz, and they want another music-based show. Creator Michael Porias, Rich Correll, and Barry O'Brien pitch a concept. A normal teenage girl who is secretly a global pop superstar. She hides her identity with a blonde wig. Her dad is her manager. Nobody at school knows. The premiere is on paper absolutely deranged. You're telling me that a blonde wig, not a mask, not a disguise, not even a voice modulator, a wig is sufficient to cover up the most famous pop star on the planet? Yes, that is exactly what we're telling you. If it worked for Superman with the glasses, it can work for a pop star. We just rolled with it. The character started out named Chloe Stewart, then Zoe Stewart. That got scrapped because it sounded too close to Zoe 101, which was already airing on Nickelodeon, and nobody wanted that confusion. The show's title went through its own identity crisis. At various points, the character was called Anna Cabana, Samantha York, and I'm gonna need you to brace yourself for this last one, Alexis, Texas. Alexis, Texas. That sounds more like a RuPaul's Drag Race contestant than a Disney Channel kids character. Alexis, Texas, a name the Disney Channel came this close to putting on merchandise for children. We were one bad decision away from a very different cultural moment. Now, the audition. Disney's casting process for the lead role was a genuinely long, competitive 11-month ordeal. Among the names who were considered, JoJo, who reportedly turned the role down. Taylor Momsen, who you know as Jenny Humphrey from Gossip Girl, was a frontrunner. Daniela Monet auditioned. Ailey and AJ, yes, the potential breakup song. Ailey and AJ were tested for the role. Lucy Hale auditioned. It was a who's who of 2000's Disney-adjacent talent, all chasing the same blonde wig. Meanwhile, in Tennessee, a 12-year-old named Miley Cyrus, whose actual birth name was Destiny Hope Cyrus, a name she later legally changed because, as she explained, all the different aliases were getting confusing, had originally auditioned for the role of Lily, the best friend. Disney said, "You're too young for the lead, thanks." So Miley went back to cheerleading at her middle school in the Nashville suburbs while Disney shot a pilot with a completely different cast. Then that pilot bombed. Disney called the Cyrus house back, "Fly to LA, try again." And so Miley Cyrus went to the mall in Tennessee to pick out an audition outfit. She spotted a t-shirt on a rack that read, "I should have my own TV show." She bought it, wore it to the audition, and booked the part. That t-shirt is, historically speaking, the most important garment in Disney Channel history. Someone needs to put it in a museum next to the actual wig. But it was not a unanimous decision. Disney executive Gary Marsh, who revealed this at the 20th anniversary special, described the final call in an email he wrote to his team. "We pride ourselves not just on creating great television, but on creating stars. I'm ready to pull the trigger on Miley. Is she a risk? Unquestionably true. Is she a potential star? Absolutely." The vote was not a landslide. 10 people in the room, split decision. Hannah Montana only exists because Gary Marsh had conviction and his colleagues eventually went with it. And then there's Billy Ray, who was going to be cast as Miley's fictional father, which, since he was her actual father, is only slightly meta, but who apparently was not fully on board with the plan. As Miley described in the anniversary special, while sitting in the Disney waiting room before his audition, Billy Ray saw another dad he thought was more qualified, so he walked out into the parking lot, found more dads, brought them inside, pointed at them, and said to the Disney casting team, "You should hire this guy. He's a great actor." He was actively lobbying for his own replacement, mid-audition. Miley's response was, "Me and Mom were both like, 'Shut up, he got the job anyway.'" Partially because the casting director, charmed by Billy Ray, had joked to Miley's mother, Tish, "Too bad we can't afford her real dad." And Tish said, "Oh, maybe you can." And that is how Achy Breaky Heart ended up on Disney Channel. Part 2. The Wig, the Show, and the billion-dollar franchise Disney didn't see coming. The Wig, world's most implausible disguise, world's most effective television concept. We need to talk about The Wig, the show's entire premise, and I want to be fair to the writers here, because it worked. It absolutely worked. Rests on the idea that a blonde wig is a sufficient disguise for the most famous teenage pop star in the world. Not sunglasses, not a hat, a wig. And not just any wig. The same wig. Every time. The population of her entire town, her school, her neighbors, random fans at concerts, none of them could put together that the girl under the wig sounded exactly like their friend Miley, was managed by Miley's dad, performed at venues Miley attended, and had the same face as Miley. It's a lot to ask of an audience. The audience accepted it completely and asked for more. The wig wasn't even finalized until the second episode. The pilot used a slightly different style on a smaller budget. It wasn't until Miley put on the final version that everything clicked into place. She later said, "I was Hannah Montana immediately." She also described the look as deliberately patterned after her real-life godmother. That godmother being Dolly Parton, a woman who famously wears wigs herself, and who, some people have pointed out, is arguably the real-life inspiration for the Hannah Montana concept in the first place. A beloved country-adjacent entertainer with big hair who maintained a warm public image while protecting a fiercely private real self. Sound familiar? Dolly Parton has been doing Hannah Montana since 1967. She just did it without the Disney Channel. Hannah Montana premiered on March 24th, 2006, exactly 20 years ago to the day of the anniversary special, and pulled in 5.4 million viewers. The highest rated premiere in Disney Channel history at that point. By April, the average episode was drawing 3.5 million viewers. By August of 2007, the episode guest starring the Jonas Brothers, which aired right after High School Musical 2 premiered, was watched by 10.7 million people. That is not a cable number. That is a major network event number for a kids show on a Tuesday night. And here's the part that makes every Disney executive wince when they think about it. Nobody in merchandise anticipated any of this. Disney Consumer Products failed to produce any official Hannah Montana merchandise for the first holiday season after the show premiered in March 2006. Not a doll, not a backpack, not a lunchbox. Nothing. The most popular show on Disney Channel, and they just forgot to make stuff. By February 2008, the franchise was so profitable, Disney had to convene an 80-person international meeting just to figure out what to do with it.
First, we didn't know what to do with all the money. We tried burying it, shredding it, and burning it.
MSNBC estimated the Hannah Montana brand was worth $1 billion by the end of 2008. $1 billion. And they almost missed the first Christmas. I'd like to believe someone in merch got a very specific performance review that year. One of the show's greatest unsung achievements was its episode naming policy. Every single episode title was a pun on a real song. Every one. 98 episodes, 98 puns. Don't Go Breaking My Tooth from Elton John's Don't Go Breaking My Heart. I Will Always Loathe You, Dolly Parton, obviously. Hannah in the Streets with Diamonds, Beatles. There's one called We're All on This Date Together, which is a pun on the High School Musical song We're All in This Together. That is chaotic self-referential confidence, and I respect it enormously. Part 3. Everyone on this show had a secret. I need to dedicate several minutes to Jason Earles. Jason played Jackson Stewart, Miley's 16-year-old older brother. Goofy, lovable, always scheming, always failing. A beloved character, and he was portrayed for 4 full seasons by a man who was 28 years old when the show started. 28, not 18, not 22, not even 25. 28 years old, playing a 16-year-old on a Disney Channel show surrounded by actual 13 and 14-year-olds. His castmates were roughly half his age. Miley Cyrus was 13, Emily Osment and Mitchell Musso were both 14, Moises Arias, who played Rico, was 11. Jason Earles was a grown adult man with a mortgage, metaphorically speaking, pretending to be a high school sophomore. But wait, it gets better. He didn't just fail to mention his age, he actively lied about it. During his audition, he told Disney he was 18. The casting director believed he was 19, but asked him to say 18 because they wanted someone close to the character's age. So Jason told the casting director he was 18 when he was actually 28. He was a decade off. He lied by a full decade, and he got the job, and then he had to keep the lie going. For the entire first season, he's described being constantly terrified of getting found out. His wife Jennifer, whom he was married to at the time, was visiting him on set, and, in his own words, he kept making out with her between takes on a Disney Channel set where everyone thought he was 18. Eventually, a Disney executive came to a show night around episode 8, pulled him aside and said, "Hey, so you're 28, Jason confirmed this. The executive then noticed the woman Jason had been making out with regularly. Jason explained, "Yeah, that girl I keep making out with, that's my wife." The executive processed this, looked at him, and said, "Any more secrets? Anything else we should know?" Jason said no. The executive then asked if he had kids. Jason said no. The executive said, "Let's keep it that way for a few years." Part 4. Miley, Hannah, and the 20 years in between. The 20th anniversary special almost didn't exist. Disney wasn't planning one. But Miley Cyrus, who had been somewhat complicated in her feelings about Hannah Montana for years, going from distancing herself from the character in the 2010s to gradually reclaiming her as she got older, decided she wanted to mark the anniversary. And she had learned a particular approach to making things happen from her godmother, Dolly Parton.
And one of my favorite pieces of advice she ever gave me was start promoting something before it's real, because then as people get excited, it'll be easier to make it happen.
Okay.
So I just started talking about a Hannahversary special before one even existed. And then I went to Disney and said, look how excited everyone is about this, imaginary Hannahversary.
So Miley started promoting a Hannah Montana 20th anniversary special publicly on social media, in interviews, before Disney had greenlit anything. Before there was a script, a host, a set, a date, she just started talking about it like it was already happening and sent Disney the fan reactions. Disney eventually said, "Okay, yes, we're doing this." "She willed it into existence," said a Disney executive. The woman manifested a Disney Plus special through sheer public momentum. Dolly Parton taught her to do that. The whole thing is extremely on brand for everyone involved. 20 years later, 500 million streaming hours, and still going. Here is where we are 20 years later. Hannah Montana has been streamed on Disney Plus for a total of 500 million hours. When the anniversary special dropped in March 2026, viewership of the original series jumped 1,000% in the following week. The franchise grossed over $1 billion and launched a career that has now produced 3 Grammy wins, 10 nominations, and 20 million records sold worldwide. Miley Cyrus has said she used to think of Hannah as completely separate from herself, a character she put on and took off like the wig. But at the anniversary special, she described this moment as merging Hannah and Miley together, 2 identities, finally in the same room, shaking hands, 20 years late. The whole show was about the exhaustion of maintaining a double life, about the impossibility of keeping your real self separate from your public one. And then Miley Cyrus spent the next decade after the show actually living that theme in public in real time, with the whole world watching and forming opinions. She was 13 when she put on that wig for the first time. She had no prior acting experience. She wore a t-shirt that said she should have her own TV show. She was right. And 20 years later, she walked back onto that set, put the wig on again, sang The Climb, and the people in the audience who had grown up with her absolutely lost it. Hannah Montana is 20 years old. The kids who watched it in 2006 are in their late 20s and early 30s now, probably introducing it to their own kids, probably still remembering every word of that theme song, probably still, somewhere in the back of their minds, believing just a little bit that a good enough wig could hide anything. But you know what else defined that era of Disney Channel? The other shows. The ones running alongside Hannah Montana, competing with it, learning from it, building on it. Shows that had their own insane origin stories, their own wild behind-the-scenes moments, their own unforgettable casts. I've been deep in research on one of them, and it is an absolute goldmine. It is right here. I will see you there.